The war between Israel and Iran was predicted in the Bible. And yes, this has become necessary to explore because the world is watching something that has never happened before in modern history. Recently, Israel and Iran have gone to war. Missiles have been fired. Nuclear facilities have been struck. Cities have been on high alert. And every news anchor on every channel is asking the same question. Where does this end? Is this the beginning of something much larger? Something nobody can stop? But there is a question nobody on television is asking. What if this was already written down? What if thousands of years ago, before Iran was even called Iran, before modern Israel existed on any map, the Bible described this exact conflict, these exact two nations, in these exact last days? Because it did. And by the time this video is over, you will never look at the Middle East the same way again. Let us look at what has happened first, because the timeline matters. In April 2024, Iran did something it had never done in its entire history. It launched a direct attack on Israeli territory, firing over 300 drones and missiles in a single night. With help from allied nations, nearly all were intercepted. But a line had been crossed. Then in June 2025, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, striking dozens of Iranian nuclear and missile facilities. Iran retaliated, and what followed became known as the 12-Day War, ending in a ceasefire on June 24th. And now in 2026, Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. The man who spent decades funding Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and making the destruction of Israel the centerpiece of his regime, is gone. None of this is a surprise to anyone who has been reading their Bible. Go to Ezekiel chapter 38, written approximately 590 years before Christ. God speaks to the prophet about a war that will happen in the last days. A massive coalition of nations rises up against one target, Israel. And in Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 5, right there in the list of nations joining this coalition, the very first nation named is Persia. Persia is Iran, not a loose connection, not a stretch. Modern-day Iran is ancient Persia. Every historian and archaeologist agrees. The same land, the same people, the same geography. God named Iran in a war prophecy against Israel over 2,500 years ago. Now look at Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 2. God says, "Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him." Bible scholars across many centuries have identified Magog as the territory we know today as Russia. And right now, Russia and Iran share the closest military alliance in their entire history. Russia purchasing Iranian drones, Iran receiving Russian weapons technology. Two nations named together in the same end-times war prophecy are now active military partners in the real world. Read Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 4, where God says, "I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army, as if they cannot stop themselves." Watch Iran over the last decade. Every time there is a chance to step back, they step forward. Every time there is a chance to de-escalate, the aggression increases. Something is pulling them toward this moment they do not fully understand. Now here is the detail that makes everything click. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 8 says this war happens after the Jewish people have been gathered from many nations to the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. For nearly 2,000 years, there was no Israel on the map. Then on May 14, 1948, Israel became a nation again. Jewish people returned from over 100 countries to their ancient land. The specific historical condition Ezekiel said had to exist before this war could happen was fulfilled in 1948. That was the prophetic clock starting to tick. Since that clock started ticking, Israel has been increasingly isolated on the world stage, exactly as the Bible predicted. Anti-Semitism has exploded globally, exactly as the Bible predicted, and Iran has spent those same decades funding every terror network aimed at Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all of it pointing in one direction, exactly as the prophecy described. Now read what Ezekiel says happens when this coalition finally moves against Israel. In chapter 38, verse 18, God says, "When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused." In verse 22, he says, "I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him." And in Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 4, God says directly to the attacking force, "You will fall on the mountains of Israel, you and all your troops and the nations with you." The coalition that comes against Israel does not win. God himself steps in. The outcome is declared in advance. This is not vague. This is not symbolic. This is specific. And it was written thousands of years before any of it began. But even in the middle of all this, there is something remarkable happening inside Iran itself. Christianity has been growing dramatically inside Iran through house churches and underground believers. The regime has persecuted Christians intensely, and yet the church keeps growing, because God has always had a heart for the people of Iran. Remember, modern Iran is the same land as ancient Persia, the land of Esther, the land of Daniel, the land where God raised up Cyrus the Great and said in Isaiah chapter 45, verse 1, "This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him." A Persian king from the land of Iran, chosen by God to restore the Jewish people to their homeland. God has moved powerfully in that nation before, and he is moving there again right now. So what does all of this mean? Jesus himself said in Luke chapter 21, verse 28, "When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." He said, when you see the signs, lift your head, not run in fear. Look up, because the God who predicted this conflict thousands of years ago is still completely in control of how it ends. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 4 says, "You brothers and sisters are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief." God gave us these prophecies so that when we see them unfolding, we would not be caught off guard. We would be ready. We would know exactly what time it is. The war between Israel and Iran is not the final chapter. It is a sign that the final chapter is drawing near. And the most important question you need to answer today is not what happens next in the Middle East. It is whether you are ready for the Lord's return. The same Bible that predicted this war with stunning accuracy says Jesus Christ is coming back. Get right with God. Walk closely with him. Stay spiritually awake, because the time to be ready is right now. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone watching the news in fear right now. They need to see this. Drop a comment below and tell me what hit you the hardest. Like this video so more people can find it. And subscribe, because we are going to keep tracking every prophecy as it unfolds together. The Bible predicted this war between Israel and Iran, and every word is coming to pass.